A little bit of lag time. So what I like to do is I put it on, I actually monitor it on um, whatever, on YouTube and maybe the Facebook, maybe not. And Ian and I are big Twin Peaks fans, and we were discussing. Do are both of you Twin Peaks fans?
I somehow like missed out on that boat because I didn't have cable back then, and so
Oh, it was on regular TV.
was it? So yeah, I mean, I,
Yeah.
I I didn't have much control over the TV because I was the oldest of
Oh.
six kids, and it was just Sesame Street all day.
Yeah. I think
Ah,
it whatever show it was against, it went up like I think it was like Cheers or something. It was like by far the most popular show on TV was in the same time slot. So it
The
would make
Cosby
sense that
Show
a
could
lot
have
of
been the
people didn't
Cosby
watch.
Show. The Cosby Show would have been the thing that was
It
on.
might have been, yeah, it probably was. Cosby or Cheers or whatever.
Yeah,
Ruben, did you watch Twin Peaks?
I didn't watch it when it first came out, and then I think at some point when I was working for Netflix, they acquired rights to it, so I had to watch it for work purposes. But I got really into the director David Lynch. He directed some other shows. I think one of them for Netflix. I want to say it was House of Cards,
No,
and I got,
hell no. He didn't direct House of Cards.
or I don't know, maybe it wasn't House of Cards. It was one of those. But yeah, I kind of went down that rabbit hole, but not too far into the deep end.
Mm.
All right. Well, this next thing is going to mean absolutely nothing to you then, because we were debating yesterday where Gordon is from, and Gordon is the character. It's David Lynch's character in Twin Peaks and Fire Walk with Me. And Ian, what I realized is that in Fire Walk with Me, he says, "This is Gordon from Portland, Oregon," but in Twin Peaks, he
The
says
show,
he's
it
in
says
Denver.
Ben. So yeah, my Stephanie looked it up last night and she's like, actually, you're both right. So
Right.
good work, us.
I know. All right. Well, it's about 6 minutes after, so it's time to say hello, hello, hello. This is Arusha from Push, a Cure fan documentary, and I'm super excited to talk today about our favorite subject, or one of our favorite subjects, The Cure and The Cure's music live. And I have a panel here of friends and music colleagues. I'm going to give the caveat first that, we don't work for Schecter. We're not ultra pros. There's no Reeves Gabrels here. But every single one of us has picked up a guitar. I think every one of us has played in a band, right? I'm probably the worst.
Yeah.
I'm the worst guitar player here. I can guarantee you that. So, and so I'll let everybody introduce themselves, and then we'll circle back to sort of the linchpin of this whole conversation, which is Ian's crazy bootleg journey.
The ridiculousness.
Yeah. So Kate, let's start with you.
hey guys. What do you want to know?
Who are you? What's your name? Where are
I'm
you
Kate.
from?
My name is Kate Garchinsky, and I live outside Philadelphia. Grew up in this area, and when I was in college at the University of the Arts, I was in a band, and the thing we did most was practice. We practiced a whole fuck ton of practicing, and we played out like 3 times because I think there was a bit of a fear factor and a perfectionism that if we didn't have everything just right, we couldn't play anywhere. So
Yeah.
practiced a whole lot of Cure songs, and and I found, I was going through like my information on the stuff that this was like our Bible at the time,
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
because it had all of the guitar setup information on what Pearl played and what Robert played and Perry, and it's a good interview. So any instrument I had to be somewhat related to something that was in the Cure at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my telly is from, in orange.
In orange.
Yeah. And
You like the
Cool.
telly?
yeah, I do, except it's heavy. It's 1989, and I think it's like solid ash.
Yeah.
I can't hold it anymore. Like I got neck problems.
I'm gonna interrupt to just say some hello to some people. Hey,
Yeah.
Silverbox. Hey, I'm gonna interrupt a lot, by the way. And you guys can interrupt each other. Hey, Dom. Hey, Silverbox. Hey, Super Eventide Victoria. Wally, who says, "Do you have Invasions of the Body Snatchers bootleg LP? Is that real?"
Mhm. It is. It's all BBC sessions, and it has Ariel on it.
Oh, really?
It also so the last track on it says it's called Forever,
Uh-huh.
and it's actually not The Cure.
Weird.
It took me and my best friend approximately 20 years to figure out what this was. It is I have to look it up on Spotify now. It is a producer. They're called the Bollocks Brothers, and I believe they were producers that were involved in something, and so they made this very strange song. And anyone who's heard that bootleg would know what I'm talking about. It's like this 10-minute dun dun na 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 dun na 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 dun dun with this guy talking over it. And so it's this band called the Bollocks Brothers, who I think from what I figured out, they're kind of like they're similar to what was the techno band that blew up all their money and everything. They were also called the Time Lords.
Wait, you mean a techno band that blew up all their own money?
Yeah, they like burned £1 million. They're from the 90s. Not the Orb, not Aphex Twin. They were incredibly popular. They
Orbital.
I know who you're talking about. The time was it the people who did Morrissey Rides a Cock Horse?
No, that is a Denver band called the Warlock Pinchers.
Oh, yeah, some other.
Anyway, so this bootleg, it was one of those things where like, what the hell is this song? Where did it come from? Is this some weird cult hero thing? Or is it, Simon or Lowell or Robert in another band at some point? But it turned out it was like a completely different band that had nothing to do with The Cure at all.
Weird.
Did they do
so anyone who has that bootleg would
Doctor Who song? I feel like that was the time.
Yeah, they did. So they did the Doctor and the TARDIS under the name the Time Lords.
Victoria,
the KLF.
Yeah, Chris.
KLF.
KLF.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of like this KLF thing where I think it was like record producers. So I mean, it's not techno; it's kind of new wave post punk or whatever. But
KLF's gonna rock cha.
Yeah.
Ruben, let's hear about you before we get back to the bootleg mania over here on stage right.
Hey everyone, I'm Ruben. Nice to meet you all. I think similar to Kate, like all the instruments I own are like in some way Cure associated, which is pretty funny. I think behind me you see like Simon's 40th anniversary bass. I also have Robert's guitar from that show as well. I ended up buying both. It's a long story, but I had tickets to the show. I think I have the ticket stub around here somewhere to that show, and out of nowhere something came up at work and they needed me to do something like a month-long project, and it ruined my whole me going to England for that show. So I basically made them pay me a bonus, and then I bought the guitars with my bonus. So
that's a good idea.
It worked out. Yeah, and I own like a Fender American Jazzmaster just because of Robert. And yeah, so like I have some experience with instruments, mainly Cure instruments. Like I have a bass 6, a Squier bass 6, and I like to just like delve into the songs and see what notes they were playing or how they got their sound. What you can't see behind me is like, I'll move a little bit, is that stack there is a Roland JC 120 stack. So it's like 2 heads actually, and then the cab, which is pretty rare to find because it is from the 80s and it was made in Japan. But like you hit an open E minor chord with some chorus, and it's literally the 17-second sound, which is mind blowing. And
well, okay, wait, hold that thought for a second. because I don't want to glide over that. Can you say that again? Like you hit what and what happens?
Oh, well, like if you plug in and you turn on the chorus in that amp, that's pretty much Robert's sound from 17 Seconds.
It
Okay,
has
so
built-in chorus.
Yeah, it has a built-in chorus that
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Uh,
I want to before we go into because this is something I wanted to get into and I want to sort of clarify how I want to this this could be a 12-hour conversation, right?
oh
We
yeah.
could talk about this for days and weeks and like we could get on a ship together and have like meals and rest and come back to it, and so could many of the people here. But my goal, so I want to get back to what you're saying, Ruben, because there's people that are listening that have absolutely no idea what you just said. Chorus? What does that mean? There's like 12 people like sitting in your
Yeah.
in what's an amp? I mean, maybe they know what an amp is. And then there's other people on this that are like, oh, well, it's the no, it's the blah 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 and I know da 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 da. So there's a whole spectrum of people that we're going to be hopefully talking to but so when we bring these things up like that, I want to make sure we kind of say like a little bit, like we don't want to go too far into the gear nerd because some of what I want to do is I want to broaden the general perspective of why we love the Cure, like what the sound of the Cure, and I want to focus on live a little bit more than
hmm
the records because with Ian's bootleg journey and because we all just got off of the 22-23 tour. Hey Donna, hey Dwayne, hey Sophie, hey Care, and who else am I forgetting? Ariel, Chris White, Victoria. So that's a really cool thing to talk about. And I also want to point out that when you said that, Kate got excited, as did Ian, and oh hi Stephanie.
Oh, that's nice.
And the reason why I want to point that out is the other thing I wanted to do with this is that a lot of people think that women go to concerts to scream and yell and drool over the artist still and only. And even though there's nothing wrong with that, and I'm all for it, man, woman, they, there, them, asterisks, I don't care. I wanted to say that there are women like myself and like Kate and like millions of other people who not only know about what the music, the music of the Cure, like the Jenny V, who's bass player for Eagles of Death Metal, or my good friends Autumn and Sasha, who both play instruments and were inspired by the Cure, and they play in their own bands. So that's my little. I just wanted to sort of bring that up. Is that I want to expand. I do. I want to expand like the enjoyment of the Cure in sort of both directions. I want this to be fun for the music nerds, but I also want, so going back quickly to what you were saying, Ruben, you have a guitar back there and you have a chord. When you said chorus, is it a pedal?
Yeah, I mean, normally it is a pedal when we talk about chorus, but some choruses are built into amplifiers that just come stock straight away. And like the amp that Robert used back in the 80s, or one of the amps, is very famous for a built-in chorus effect. And for those that don't know what chorus does, it kind of like warbles the sound a little bit depending on where you're turning the knobs, and it creates this fuller effect to the guitar is how I would describe it. Almost like some people call it like shimmery, um, when they describe the sound. But if you ever plugged a guitar in and plugged it into a chorus pedal, and you played one chord, you can turn the knobs wherever you want to get whatever sound you want, right? Like you can turn the knobs and make the effect really slow so that it sounds very almost like seasick and like weird, or you can turn it all the way up and make it sound a little faster and get whatever effect that you're looking for. But when it comes to the Cure, like chorus is, I think, the number one effect, in my opinion, of what they use. It's almost like the effect is always on. Like when Robert plays his guitar, I'd be willing to bet that that effect is used 99% of the time if
For
he's
sure.
playing his electric guitar.
Especially the bass six too. It's
And the
always
basics, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that we're going to have to get into pretty deep, is the Fender Bass 6, what that is, why it is. Not now, after we get into Ian, because again, that could be a whole topic and we could get, 12, professional bass players in. But as you can see, everybody on this panel knows about, when they just said the Bass 6 as if it was like, oh, the fork versus the spoon.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing about the Bass 6 is that with Cure fans, everyone who plays a guitar, for the most part, knows what a Bass 6 is. If you go to any other guitar player and say, yeah, I'm going to get this Bass 6 thing, they look at you like you've grown a second head, and they're like, what are you talking about? And even if you explain to them, like, oh, yeah, like it's on Hey Jude by the Beatles, and like it's on quite a few things in the 60s and 70s, and then everyone just completely forgot about it except the Cure. So like Cure fans are like, yeah, this is a normal thing, like air or water, where everyone else just thinks it's strange.
Yeah. It's funny. I don't know how many of you, how you found out about they were using the Bass 6 versus the guitar. It took me so long to figure this out that I was chasing the sound for, I don't know, a few years. And you know what I did? Because I was like, this doesn't sound right. My guitar doesn't sound right. Why doesn't it sound like the live stuff does? And I went to a guitar shop and I bought like gauge 13 strings and strung my guitar with heavier strings, trying to chase that sound, only to find out that it's a bass, right? And it has got 6 strings and it's pretty much guitar like, but you can't really get that sound any other way, to be honest. And I'm just curious how you all found out. Kate, I assume it's the magazine that you were holding up earlier, but I pretty much found out the hard way. Like my fingers are like calloused and bleeding for a few years there.
Yeah, I didn't know on my own, but when I joined the band, they had already diving deep into what guitars Robert was playing at any given time on stage. And this just kind of, this magazine confirmed what was suspected, but it's specifically a 1963. So that it's crazy that it had been around that long. Before he didn't start using it, I think, until, was it Disintegration? Or did he use it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's definitely on. It's on Primary, and it's definitely on the Faith tour.
Okay.
It may actually only be the song Faith, and actually Primary, I'm not sure if his part is a 6-string, if it's the Bass 6, or if he's also just playing a bass. Because I've never seen a Faith concert video, so
I think it's 6-string. In the video,
I think it is
the bass though, and it's hard to go off of videos because they were always messing around with instruments in videos. And what's interesting about the Bass 6 too, for people that don't know, is for so long Fender didn't make it. They made it in the 60s. It was primarily used with surf music, and then the Beatles got a hold of it. But
and then I think they stopped making it like the year after that.
And you couldn't find it, and it was almost inaccessible because if you weren't a rich musician or a lawyer or a doctor, you were probably going to pay like thousands of dollars to find a true Fender Bass 6, right? Like a 1963 Bass 6 right now, I want to say goes for like $5 to $10 grand. depending on condition, maybe more.
I would say that if you got one for $5,000, you'd either be very lucky or it's in terrible condition. I think I've seen them recently for like over 20,000.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
Insane.
So Ian, I'm gonna pitch this to you because so Allison, who I don't think she's on yet, or if she is, she hasn't said hello. And there's some people like this super event. It says Space 6 Live is Boss EQ for solo boost, SD1 overdrive. Blah, blah, blah. I don't even understand. Flanger that goes into the Boss delay and Boss chord. Da 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 da. Primary
Boss,
is
boss.
yeah,
Yes,
the second
boss.
Fender precision.
Boss.
Blah blah blah. But so Allison Humphreys, who I don't know if she's on here yet, but she said. So I'm going to use this for your intro because we haven't even introduced you.
Yeah.
Ian.
Yeah.
Ian, what song? Well, so there's a lot of questions. One is, what song do you get excited about hearing when you hear a new bootleg? What is the best 2000? You can pocket those. But since we're talking about the Fender Bass 6, she says Bass 6 being what is it about? Like, can you give us a 101? Again, to somebody who's never picked up a guitar, they just bring these things on, they take them off. There's new pedals. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, she says, we always hear about the Fender Bass 6 being a key part of the Cure sound. What does that mean and why?
I think that, so the way that my best friend and I figured out what it was we had gone to the concerts in '89, and he was in front row. And after the show, he called me because we lived in 2 different cities at the time. And he said, I don't know what he's using for Close Down and Prayers for Rain. It's a Fender, but something is weird about it. And so over the course of the next year, we actually were able to find a good photograph that someone had taken in Europe where you could read the headstock. And so we're like, okay, what is this? So then I looked it up. And actually, the first time I came to visit you in San Francisco in the early 90s, I went to a guitar shop and found 5 of them they were all like busted up, terrible condition. And I don't know how to fix a guitar. And I was like, oh, okay, these things are apparently everywhere. So I'm just going to find one that, actually has the electronics in it or whatever. And then over the next few years, I realized that they're impossible to find. And I probably should have just bought the crappy broken one and found someone to fix it, which probably would have been cheaper. But the reason that we knew that there was something weird about it is when we would learn how to play songs like Close Down is a very obvious one. If you watch him play it and you put your hand in the exact same spot and you play it, you're like, my note sounds very thin and very high. And so it just, everything is an octave lower. So a lot of times you have to play really high up on the guitar.
So
but
wait,
it still sounds like it's low. It has more body to it.
Hold on. Pause. Everything is an octave lower.
It's exactly the same as a bass.
So
I think it's in between.
No, it is an octave.
It's a baritone guitar, so it's an octave lower than a guitar, but it's higher than a regular bass.
No, a bass is one octave on the guitar.
Oh,
the bass 6 is tuned to the same tone as a bass. You just have the extra B and E string on the bottom, like a guitar.
Let me read something really quickly online that's on whatever. The Fender bass is a very interesting and unique instrument. At first glance, one would think, so it's a 6-string bass. Nope. Oh, it's a baritone. Nope. It's an instrument that lies somewhere in between. Basically, the bass 6 is a guitar, 1 full octave lower than a standard guitar. So it's tuned to standard E, not like the typical 6-string bass with super low strings. But again, let's not get super nerdy. Let's bring it back to people who maybe somebody doesn't even know what an octave is. And I would say part of the reason why this Fender Bass 6 is such a Cure signature sound is exactly because the bass line is 1 whole octave lower. So you're already going down. You know what I mean? If you're thinking about it in like normal people terms, the music is already lower. It's already going to sound different. So that's one thing. What else? Ian, we don't even know who Ian is yet.
Yes, Ian.
Ian,
Wow.
who are you?
I am Ian Christensen. What was that? Oh yes, I was in a band, many bands for years. What are we introing? I guess I started listening to The Cure a really long time ago. 1986. I actually went to boarding school because I was a bad child, and my first day, I had a roommate, and he was from Japan, and his older brother went to the same school. And he walked in, and I was listening to either Wham or Duran Duran. I'm not sure which one. And his brother walked in, listened for about 10 seconds, and said, "You're not fucking doing this." Walks out, comes back like 5 minutes later with a Cure tape, a Smiths tape, a Sex Pistols record, and I think it might have been a Clash record. And so I already knew the Sex Pistols and the Clash, but I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'll listen to these. And yeah, I mean, it maybe halfway through Killing an Arab, I was like, oh my God, what is this? This is like something I've never heard in my life. And pretty much became obsessed
Awesome.
after that. So then I just wanted to realize I just wanted to be Simon Gallup, and that didn't work out because I'm too tall and not British. But yeah, so I learned how to play almost everything up through about Wish. I kind of stopped after that. I know how to play a few of those newer songs, sort of.
And then when Ian and I met in 1990 in Tucson, he said I was wearing a pornography shirt. He said,
I think I'll give you $50 for that shirt.
and I said, "Fuck you." And then we became best friends, and we would sit around for hours in his room, smoking cigarettes. I don't know how we had the time talking about music. Not only The Cure, but we talk about, like, he used to try to get me to love My Bloody Valentine, and I didn't for a long time. I was like, it's making me seasick. But we would dream of seeing The Cure together, and we finally did. And there's a whole other story with that. But now, Ian and I have been to a lot of shows together, and Ian went to both 2022 and 2023. But what did you start doing in the pandemic?
So yeah, it would have been around the first Christmas of, I almost said 1980, but Christmas of 2020, when like COVID was giant and we couldn't do anything. And so what are we going to do on Friday night? My wife and I would decide that the best thing to do is we're going to fix our credit. So it'll be really amazing. And if we super focus on this and move money around, and it was kind of like, this is how we're going to have fun on a Friday night when no one's allowed to go anywhere. And so I said, I've always wanted to listen to the entire Faith tour. And I thought, do you care if I put on some Cure bootlegs? And she's like, oh, yeah, of course, put them on. And so we listened to that whole tour over the course of a few weeks. And afterwards, I was like, do you care if I start listening to 1979? And I've just been doing it now for almost 3 years. So I'm up to December. What am I? I'm on the last show of 2016, the last London.
Wow.
2016. So yeah.
So in order from 1979, because somebody did bring up that they said there's no way that Ian heard 1978, and I was like, oh, maybe you're right.
Yeah. I think the first one I found was March or April of 79, I believe, and I found it on YouTube. I think The Cure for All or someone definitely had it up. It wasn't that hard to find. Although the 79, there's not a lot that I could find. Some of that may be that tape traders tend to keep stuff close, and they may have things that they don't want to trade to other people, which I would kind of understand, even though I'm on the outside of it, so that sucks. But so I don't actually have a lot of comments about 1979, just because the quality is dodgy on some of them. So if I think, oh, they didn't sound good, that might have nothing to do with Robert or Michael or whoever.
Right. So Allison, since we're talking about it, and you still have 7 years to go, even though some of those years they didn't.
Well, it's pretty easy because I think like 2018, I suppose I can passively listen to, even though I think I listened to that album a few weeks ago. And then I did listen to quite a bit of 19 and 22 as they were happening. So I've heard most of them. I mean, I'm going to still continue to listen to them in order. I think the transitions of some of the songs are pretty astounding, even on one tour, let alone, over a decade or whatever.
Yeah. You're on the home stretch.
Yeah, I know. I'm on like it's this kind of the easiest time probably, because the shows have started to get shorter now, which is good, because I think some of the like 96 through
Swing tour was
like
long.
96 even up through the end of Pearl being there was like, everyone is like, this is a good solid 3 hours that like I'm gonna be, whereas like some of the earlier tours, it's like in one night sometimes I would listen to 3 shows if I didn't have any distractions, which is really good, because you can listen to like, oh, I hear that M, like, or the difference between whatever is.
Yeah. Right. I mean, that's a huge thing. It's talking about the progression of a song and all that. But just to knock another question that Allison had, she's asked, what song do you get excited about hearing? Like, is there a song you're like, what is this going to sound like? I mean, even though you kind of know.
Yeah, I think when I first started, I mean, I listened to a lot of bootlegs. I used to own a lot of them. I don't think I'd ever heard Another Day.
Mm.
And from Three Metro Boys.
Yeah.
Another Day. It goes like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I guess I was certainly excited for Doubts until I realized they didn't play it. Like, I always thought it was like an urban myth that they hadn't played Doubt, and then I realized as I was listening and going through every set, I was like, oh, they never really did play it. So I was excited when I got to 2011, although I had already cheated, because obviously, like, after those shows happened, I listened to them the day after, 10 years ago or whenever that was. I guess there are songs that I look forward to that I know, I'll be in 1987 and I'll think, oh, well, I'm pretty excited that I know in like 8 years they'll play, whatever it is. I was certainly very excited about 1,000 Hours.
Mm.
I think actually I do remember when I started 1987, I was like, oh my God, I cannot wait until I get to Los Angeles, because I have to hear what this song sounds like. It sounds all right. The sound quality of the show is pretty bad, so it's kind of actually hard to judge.
Oh, the 1987 one?
Yeah. Because they only played it one time.
So I have a theory that they took that down like half an octave or something for the recent shows, because it doesn't sound like it's in the same key as on the album.
Yeah, I guess I had
vocally.
I think when I saw it, I was in such shock that I think that they probably could have like messed up every part of the song, and I still would have been like, that was amazing. I can't believe I just saw that.
I had made a comment that it's a lot, like when they did it on this recent tour, it was way shorter than it was on the recording. But I went back and listened to it, and I think the time is actually just about right. I just think we remember things differently from back then.
Or the tone. Carl Palmer is on, and this is related to what you're saying. First of all, he says, does Ian go under the name of Forrest fan at all? And you don't, do you? No, he's not. Ian lives in way up north in America, in the woods.
Where?
I'm in Duluth, Minnesota.
Oh,
it's really hot here today. It's like 80. It's unbelievably terrible how hot it is.
Oh my God, don't travel with this man when it's over 70 degrees. You're going to it.
The downside of it only being that hot a little bit is that I also have to deal with 25 below in the middle of winter.
Kate, I want to, we can get back to that guitar, but it's also...
Yeah, that's why I was putting it down, because it was very uncomfortable.
Okay. And then Carl says Inglewood Forum 1987 is probably what you were talking about. And then
Of
Tony
course, LA got it.
Yeah, I remember the bootleg for that has a picture of him in his Betty Boop shirt on the Los Angeles
Awesome.
87 bootleg. Because I had a friend who had bought it once, and he listened to like the first few songs and returned it to the record store because he's like, the sound quality, this is unbelievably terrible. And he's right. The sound quality is not good. And he actually ended up getting, I think, London 87, which is a significantly better sounding concert. So at the time, it was a better, I don't think, we didn't know that they played 1,000 hours, or I guess we probably didn't know that they, like, what they were playing back then, because we would just kind of guess and be like, oh, look, like every time they play in France, they always play these songs. So we definitely have to go see them in France or get bootlegs from France. But then after a while, we realized, like, oh, they play those same songs in England or in Canada or in Australia. You know, we just have to find the right bootlegs.
Ian, when you say bootlegs, are you talking about CDs, VHSs, records?
I'm mostly talking about records,
Yeah.
but I did buy quite a few CDs. I still have some of the CDs. I still have like Paris 82 and Los Angeles 81, and I have some top shows too.
Got it.
Do you have any on
Like the
vinyl? Vinyl was a thing for
No,
bootlegs for a while.
unfortunately, I sold all my bootleg vinyl. I unfortunately many years ago decided that I was tired of collecting records and sold all of my records, which was over 200. And so now I'm trying to buy them back. I have, I don't know, like 100, I think. But I do regret selling. There was a bootleg called Hot, and it's from Rome, 1987. And it's fantastic sound quality. I saw one on eBay the other day for like $200, and I was like, yeah, I'm not buying that, because I could just listen to it for free on YouTube. But I always kind of regretted that, because I think now that I've gone through this journey and almost being finished, I think that my favorite version of Faith and my favorite version of A Forest are both from that one show. I think it's the longest version of A Forest.
Which one?
It's like
Which
15. Show? It's Rome, 1987.
Is this in your playlist that's online? I started going through your playlist.
It is, yeah, okay. Definitely. And the bootleg is called Hot. And yeah, the Forest is like 15 minutes long. And it does the 100 years into A Forest, and the 100 years has like the super long extended guitar solo, like in Orange. And then the version of Faith is just like this kind of sad 12-minute long, like there's a long guitar solo at the end of it. And
so I miss those days of lengthy improvisational Cure.
I do.
The last, like, saying it out loud, like we're not Grateful Dead fans here, but I do miss I miss those days.
Well, it wasn't.
I really
jam
hate
band,
the Grateful
though,
Dead, but I love long songs. I don't know how many other people think this, but I would say if I listed my top 10 Cure songs, Carnage Visors is definitely one of them. I can't even really think of a song that I really, really love that's under 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay, so
maybe like M seems short, but
I really love Carnage Visors too, but I want to catch up on some of the comments. A very good Ariel says a very good recording not complete is the bootleg called Dead Cat Collection.
Yeah, because I think that has like a bunch of BBC things on it, I believe.
Yeah, and then Toby Burrell says first full recording in 1979 was March Marquee London.
Yeah.
And then Ian, I will, if you can send me the link to your list, which first we have to talk about what the hell that it means in this forum, because some people are like, what are you talking about, a list of what? So I'll put that in the page after this, but also it goes into another question, which what is?
Do you want me to send it to your?
Just send it. You can send it wherever. Send it wherever, and the link. So what list are you talking about? And then what is the best if you had to recommend the best of the Dream Tour, and I would open this up to the whole panel, because I know that, I mean, Kate, I don't know if you listen. I don't sit around and listen to bootlegs, so I know Ruben does. I don't know if Kate does, but so let's
not like these guys. Not. But I also hadn't I had been away from bootlegs for a long time. So when they were showing up at our local Repo Records was the place to get them. And I
Repo
was like,
Records.
yeah,
Great
man.
name.
And I would be like, oh my god, I found another one. And on VHS as well. Those were exciting.
I got many a VHS.
The wish tour.
I remember I bought a VHS of the what's that pornography in the studio.
Ooh.
Where he's wearing the pink shirt and they play like 4 songs on French television. I remember, I think I paid like $30 for it. It's literally like 20 minutes long, but I was like, oh my God, this is the only way I can see the pornography tour is through this bootleg.
Ian, what's your list? What are you talking about? What list? What is?
Okay. So my list was, when I started doing this, I was like, well, how am I going to find all these? And I found a site on YouTube called Cure for All, or Cure for Free for All, or something like that. I think it's Cure for All.
Yeah.
Cure for All.
Cure for All.
Yeah, and he has almost every bootleg, or at least one recording from each show that there's known recordings of. There were a few shows that I would come across that I know he doesn't have Los Angeles 2000, which I easily found on another website on YouTube. Yeah, there were a few where if I couldn't find the show, I would just start searching Google, and sometimes I would find someone had loaded an MP3 at some show 15 years ago on like a college website or whatever, and I could find some like that. But almost all of them were on that guy's website, and they still are. And so he has, more or less all of the shows. And then, so what I did is I tried to make a list of what is if you want to listen to a lot of stuff, if you're like, oh my God, I really want to hear the Faith Tour, and the first one you listen to is unbelievably terrible sound quality, then you may not know, what that tour sounds like. So I started just saving each one. And my thought was, when I'm done doing this in a year, then I'll go back and listen to the shows I really like. But it's been 3 years now, and I have 249 shows that I saved as I guess the best of the best. I tried to find at least one show, or I would try to find at least one version of every song that was played on a tour. So that took a lot of, I have to, I'd listen to a show and be like, oh, that's not a very good version of this song. But then I would go through and see, did they play the song again on this tour, or is this the only version of that? And I would still save those. A lot of it is, you can, the differences between who's playing the guitar or the keyboard or the drums or whatever. I was thinking about something this morning about the drums, which I found very interesting. Arusha had mentioned something. We were talking the other day about Boris and Jason, and it made me think of that 4 different drummers have played Siamese Twins. And 2 of those 4 drummers played it wrong the first time they played it. And not like slightly wrong, but really wrong. Like, I'm playing a completely different song. And so Lowell and Andy both did terrible jobs of playing that song, but Boris and Jason both did them perfect. So
yeah,
it was just something I thought of, where people are like, oh, Jason did this, and I'm like,
yeah.
Lowell messed up the song he wrote, which we all do. I mean, I've certainly gotten on stage and have been halfway through a song and think, well, I don't know what this next chord is, so I'm just going to turn on this pedal that makes some weird feedback sounds, so I can stare at someone else in my band and tell them, like, oh yeah, those are the
That's what we're playing.
Yeah. So I mean, when I say that, like, they make a mistake, I'm not pointing it out.
We all make Yeah, we
Yeah,
all
I mean,
make
I make
mistakes.
a lot.
Robert Smith makes mistakes all the time. He forgets the words half the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I
He
gotta
does that way
At
less than
least
you.
half.
I gotta push I gotta push this along because we still have a lot to cover. Nicholas Hedges says no one talks about the.
Yeah, so I mean, when I
Wait,
say
can
that
you hear me?
I make a mistake, I'm not pointing it out
We
and
all
saying I
make, yeah, we
yeah,
all
I mean
make
I make a
mistakes.
lot. Well, that's
Robert
weird.
Smith makes mistakes all. Nicholas Hedges. Whoa, that's weird. That is
That was very
weird.
strange.
A little bit of a
Um,
delay.
yeah,
I
that
might
was
have
like-
done something. I was trying to like have the Facebook thing open instead of.
You can have it open. You have to have it muted because it's
I
delayed.
thought
It's
I thought
delayed.
I did, but it was still doing something funky, so I just closed it.
Okay,
Wait,
so for
Are we
this,
gonna answer that dream tour question real
I
quick?
know.
Let's get to that.
Yeah, let's get to that. So for the sake of time, Ian, make it very short. If you had to like pin down the best of 2000 without, whatever, for Allison, and
The
then
best of 2000.
and then let's
Sorry,
go.
I'm gonna look real quick at what I saved for 2000 to see if any of them really stick out to me.
Ruben, Kate, do you have any?
I'll just say I went to the whole like California leg of the dream tour, so that's like my perspective. I think the Europe shows were first, right? So
Yeah.
like I remember getting a hold of a bootleg and thinking these shows are amazing. So like I think for Europe, I'll say anything that you get your hands on. But for me personally, it was Los Angeles, California. They always break out a rarity when they go to LA, and that tour was just amazing. So I'll say if you're looking for a solid show, look no further than Los Angeles, and you'll be fine.
In 2000,
Yeah, I would say like probably actually Los Angeles, Paris. Paris is the sound quality in the Paris one is pretty good, so I think that certainly sways me. Unfortunately, there is another of these European ones that I thought was really good. I want to say that it's Vienna, but I'm not positive. But I have a few, like I have one saved from 2000, and I do remember that one of the European ones that was not Paris was, I remember thinking like, oh, this is the best version of Where the Birds Always Sing or Watching Me Fall or whatever it was. There were a few of like that one show, but I don't remember. It was Europe.
Kate, what are your thoughts on the Dream Tour, if you have any, or
My thoughts are that I wish I hadn't started dating the man that I dated at the time and then married him because I became separated from my true self at that point.
Oh,
and
we can all relate.
Toxic. And at first it was cool that I was kind of goth when I was still in my like 20s and stuff, but then once I had to meet his family, then I had to like pull back the goth, and he started buying me J. Crew clothing.
Oh.
Maybe he wanted you to go to a Cure in Orange in 1986 when they were all wearing like white shirts.
Yeah, hey, that would have worked, right? Yeah, but he came to. We went to I bought tickets to the Dream Tour in Philly, which was in the Camden it's called the Tweeter Center, I think, at the time, and seats weren't great, and it was just a depressing. In a way, I knew that the relationship was going to be bad once he started kind of making fun of like the other fans at the show.
No.
You know?
Oh no!
Yeah, and I should have seen that as a red flag, right? But I was so codependent. I could get into the whole psychology, but the whole point is, I kind of missed out on a whole big chapter between 2000 and then. I mean, the next time I saw them was 2008. Did they play in between? I'm not even sure.
Yes.
Yeah, they played in America 03 and 04.
Oh my God,
yeah,
they played.
See, I missed all that.
03, 04, or maybe not 05, but what was I gonna say? So yeah, Kate was there at the infamous Fairfax that Ian and I were at, where we all got hustled into
Man.
sound check, which is insane, and they played
Oh,
Plain
that's
Song for the
awesome.
first time.
I swear, I remember seeing you, Arusha. I swear. Did you have would you have had little buns up on your head like this, maybe?
Probably.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah.
totally saw you. I remember that.
But we have so much to
Yeah,
cover.
I think your hair was bright pink at the time. I had
Well, that
bright
was-
pink hair too at the time.
In '96, you definitely had bright pink.
In
hair.
'96, I definitely did.
But we have a lot of ground to cover. I'm going to give you some topics that we have to cover. One, we have to talk about Ruben, whatever you discovered. You brought up something, and I don't remember what it is, so maybe we'll go to that next. I want to cover Boris versus Jason because I'm so tired of people going, and it's not the same thing. And so that I'm going to put a pin on that. We're also going to talk about Perry coming back, and because Ian and I saw the tour together, and we could see what Ian could see a lot better and hear a lot better than what I could, and especially between 2022 and 2023, what we saw him playing, because there's a lot of people being ding-dongs about that, and I'm just going to say that I don't care if he comes on stage and plays a triangle, because it's not my band, it's not my job to decide who plays what, but we did notice, his contribution, and so I want to get into that at some point. Also, Nick Hedges says no one talks about epic bass pedals from Cold on the Pornography tour.
Oh, the foot pedals, is that what he's talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, the foot keyboard. Oh,
Yeah.
But Ruben, what is that? What can you enlighten us?
Well, I just saw a video of that era where I think it's Simon is on stage and there's like a foot keyboard on the ground. And what I can't tell, because the camera is focused on the foot keyboard more than it is on Simon, so you can't see what's happening in the upper portion of Simon if he's also playing bass along with the so what he's doing is he's stepping on a key on the foot pedal, playing to, what is it? Is it
it's Cold. Yeah,
it's Cold,
so
right?
Simon's right foot and Robert's left hand on the keyboard are playing the don don don.
Yeah.
Don, don. And then Robert's right hand is playing the chords, and then the lead instrument is Simon playing on his bass.
Okay.
Dude, that's badass.
So
so cool.
essentially the bass line is just the keyboard because there's
Yeah.
not actually bass on it, and the lead instrument is the bass.
Yeah, and
Which
in
Simon
present
plays.
day, present day Cure doesn't need to do that because they have two keyboards on both sides of the stage now, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And I don't think that they. I'm trying to. I guess I have not seen a video of when they played Cold in 1985 that I can think of, but I assume by then that he was only just playing the lead line. There's in Cold. There is the weird thing of in the 1985 tour, the cello intro, the don 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 don. Simon plays on his bass.
Yeah,
which is strange.
It makes sense though. Like,
but I think it's only on that one tour because I think after that it went back to either Lowell or Roger.
I mean, if you bring in an extra instrument to your stage setup, and if it's not reliable, the next tour you're getting rid of it. So that's that's my theory on what probably happened is the Cure added a keyboardist, or they reassessed their stage setup and they're like, we're not doing it again for whatever reason. The next tour you're getting rid of it. So that's
I tried. I'm sorry, that's my fault. I was like, I just want to see what people are commenting on my phone.
But yeah, it was definitely cool to see. Like,
and I think
like that.
He also he has to be doing it because even though I can't get video evidence of some of these things, although I'm sure there are people out there who are like, oh yeah, I have video evidence of this.
Yeah, there's tons of comments coming in, by the way. But about everything, about all these things, like porno bass pedal was Elko K1. There's a French TV recording where he plays the footboard. Blah blah blah.
That's the thing I was talking about when I bought the bootleg, is the French TV thing. So anyways, a lot of the Faith and the pornography tours, there's keyboards, and Lowell can't play keyboards and drums at the same time, and Robert can't play guitar and keyboards at the same time. So it has to be Simon playing the leads for At Night and stuff like that. He has to be playing them with his foot.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Or Robert's playing it. Either Robert or Simon is playing him with the foot. But since Simon had that keyboard next to him on the one video I see, I assume he had the keyboard next to his feet for All of Faith and the pornography tour.
Yeah, because
so he must be the one that's playing the lead keyboard lines.
So I'm gonna interrupt. I'm gonna interrupt again, and bring it to Kate, and then go back to Ruben, because Kate, what we're talking about right now is the Cure's signature sound, in the sense of Kate and I were like, oh, what are we gonna talk? Like talking about subjects and whatnot, and Kate brought up like just what makes the Cure's signature sound, because for a lot of people, again, now, like, what am I seeing online? I'm seeing Cure posters, and I honestly don't give a shit about Cure posters. Like, I mean, it's fine, it's great, it's cool, but it's like,
it's good merch, at least. It's good. It's a huge improvement in the merch department.
No, it's great. It's great, and we all know, like, there's a categoric, like, you cannot deny the voice of Robert Smith and the lyrics of Robert Smith. Like, that is just, bar none, like, signature Cure is the voice of Robert Smith and the lyrics of Robert Smith. But what we don't talk about a lot is what we're talking about right now, which is the guitar and music of Robert and Simon, especially. I mean, the Cure has always expanded and contracted with their members, but to me, there is no Cure without Simon Gallup. So Kate, and then we got to go to Ruben and his notice. We got to get there. But Kate, what to you is the signature sound? And I want to focus a little bit more on live than getting into recordings. What are some thoughts?
Well, if you take, for contrast, the demos that you now get with the extended remastered versions of albums that the Cure have done professionally, and so let's say, for instance, you've got on the Wish reissue, and you hear the songs. Actually, I'm going to go back one. I'm going to go to Disintegration, because you have songs that say they were Robert Smith's home demos, right? So you hear he kind of may have come up with some of that drum line, and he came up with some of the bass, and he came up with like the different parts that are weaving together. But when you get them on stage, there's an energy that is different from any demo that Robert could do. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a huge part of it. And I feel like their relationships between the band members play a big part in that. And that's why some people will stay and you're not really sure why they're staying, but they are, or they're coming back and you're not sure why they're coming back. But it's because it's like whoever makes the group feel whole, it's not just a, it's not a super group.
Right.
They have relationships with one another, very important. And then also, for a signature Cure sound, to me, it's any one of the songs that has, say, acoustic guitar, bass 6, Simon on bass, whoever's on drums, and then stringy keyboards. So that would be Just Like Heaven.
Or The Last Day of Summer.
Last Day of Summer, love it, yeah. Or In Between Days, any of those ones that have the that combination of the keyboards, to me, are like the old analog keyboards, reminiscent of the old analog keyboards versus like the completely digital, which is a sound that they established in the 80s because that's all they had. That plus it wouldn't be the Cure without Robert's voice. It just wouldn't. You could when you listen to covers of the Cure, if you had the whole band and then you had somebody else singing, it wouldn't be.
Well, I mean, I think that's a given of like air. But what I get all bent out of shape about like this tour when I listened to when I would watch Plain Song, and when Robert's going around and saying hi to everybody, which is cool, I watch Simon come in and I think that bass, that sound,
Yeah.
it in Plainsong, it's Simon. Like so
Yeah.
much of the Cure's sound is Simon Gallup. It's
Yeah.
it's and I got a little
Except that the bass part doesn't exist on the studio album.
That's crazy, right?
That's the lead instrument on the album is Robert's guitar.
It is Robert's
Basics.
Fender 6, yeah.
Yeah,
But I actually like that
Simon's part
Simon
in that
plays.
song, it says he plays keyboards, so I assume that Simon played keyboards in the studio version
well,
because there's no bass in it.
I mean that's a good point, but I guess for me, like in a lot of my Cure journey, has always been more about the live stuff.
Hmm.
Um, live, it's just like what people hate Wild Mood Swings, and I remember when I bought that record, I was like, okay, it's overproduced, but live it was amazing. Ruben, what do you think about the Cure signature sound? And then let's get into the thing you observed, which I already forgot.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to step away for a second,
yeah,
real quick.
no
I'll be back.
worries. Um,
He's gonna go
yeah,
smoke
the
a cigarette.
signature sound for me live, especially live, is centers around, I think, the six string bass and Simon's bass. Like I think if you took those out, if Robert woke up the next, one day and said, you know what, I don't want to lug this six string bass around anymore, I'll just make do with my guitar, it would sound different and not very Cure like. And um, I think also we witnessed when the Cure came out and they didn't have a keyboardist, like Roger wasn't in the band. I don't know if anybody remembers that quick little era, but even the keyboard lines on the guitar, although it sounded different and cool, it didn't quite sound very signature of the Cure. And like, I'm glad that I'm sure they listened to the recordings and quickly came to their senses and they're like, you know what? No, we need a keyboardist back in the band too. But like every time I reduce the sound down, it's like the Cure is mainly six string bass. Like I think all those classic songs include those ingredients basically. And then for a long time, acoustic. When Robert played a 12 string,
Mhm.
I really felt like that was part of their signature sound too. Nobody was playing 12 string live the way Robert was. Robert's strumming pattern is very underrated on that 12 string as well. It's very hard to emulate, and trust me, I've tried here in this room many a times, and I still can't get it right. Um, but yeah, I think all those ingredients, make a good Cure sound live. But yeah, I think Simon is very underrated, or maybe taken for granted um, as well, just because his bass lines are so smart and
Mm-hmm.
they're simple but
Mm-hmm.
genius, and like very earwormy too. Like you can't forget some of the bass lines that he's created, and so like to see him live, it's a joy because I feel like Simon's sound, out of all the band members, their sound doesn't it stays pretty consistent, but I think Simon's bass sound has evolved over the years. It went from very clean to very dirty
Mm-hmm.
later into the years to almost very like distortion bass sound. And it seems like he's back on the clean, very punchy, slightly overdriven sound again, which I love. This last tour was great to hear him live again.
Oh yeah, I mean the new songs to me are so much about Simon and Jason. I guess you could say the rhythm section, but I think that's another thing that's to me is the Cure's signature sound is that number one, the bass player doesn't play the bass like a bass. I mean he does, but if you compare, like if you didn't know, if you listen to the Red Hot Chili Peppers and you listen to the Cure and you say why do these two bands sound so different? Part of it is because the bass player, Flea plays like a bam, bam, he slaps his bass,
Just
right?
laughing. Hmm.
And that's a way that a lot of people play bass. That's one way. Another way to play the bass is to have a stand-up bass like in jazz. And Simon, the way that he writes, because he writes a lot for The Cure, is melodic. It's like a guitar.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think it does straddle the line between a bass like rhythm, but very melodic guitar. Yeah, I would say that for sure.
Yeah. I think also his use of the semi-hollow body, semi-hollow body guitars. Robert too, when they started, was it the Gibson set, the giant red? There's the Gibson one.
95.
Yeah, like the Wish. They introduced that during Wish, I guess. A lot of the semi-hollow body, and Simon was playing semi-hollow body.
He got into the Rickenbacker.
Yeah, so
was that
no,
Ovation?
It's a Dick Knight.
Dick Knight
is the name of the guy. He makes custom, or he did. I don't know if he's still alive. He made custom guitars and basses, and he made Simon that bass, the black and white ones that he used on the Wish tour, based on the Gibson EV2, which was a hollow body bass in the 60s. And Simon has one. I think they used that in a Washburn on Disintegration, I believe. And I feel like possibly like Never Enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's that hollow bass. I used to have one of those Gibsons. I actually sold it a few years ago, regretfully now. But if I had as much money as him, I would also ask someone to make me a custom version of that. The wiring's a little wonky, and it takes a lot of work to make it sound like his bass, which I realized was like pedals, and we would try and record it, and we ended up we put a microphone in front of the bass, and I plugged it in so I would have two inputs so we could get the acoustic sound of it, because we couldn't ever figure out how that you can always hear the click of Simon's picks on his strings. And we couldn't figure out how to get that sound without compromising the actual sound of the note.
Plus, it's like if you turn it up too loud, it's going to feedback like crazy, right?
Yeah, it's probably all the magic of Dave Allen is probably what actually all of it is. But
that's another good point. And I still got to go to Ruben and his question, but maybe this is. I mean, I don't know if we're going to have time to go through everything, but I want to say this about the fucking Boris and Jason thing, and then I want to get to Ruben's quest or Ruben's stuff. You're probably like, what are you talking about? But
I want to hear about his stuff too, because I'm actually not that technical for having played bass for 35 years. When the guy I was in a band with, when he passed away, and I realized that I had to like figure out how to get all this stuff, I have stacks of stuff that I don't know how to work, because I never paid attention to the technical stuff. So I'm actually excited to hear what Ruben has to say, because a lot of the technical stuff, I was just like, whatever, I'm going to look cool. And my best friend understands it. He'll make me sound good. So,
but okay. So with Dave, when you talked about Dave Allen, and people always moan on about, not all people, like a lot of people have, when you see, first of all, you can't go see The Cure live and not see what Jason does and not realize he's a fucking fantastic drummer. He's just a different drummer than Boris. He's apples and oranges. It's just left and right. It's just a different thing. But the other thing I thought about recently, especially after interviewing Dave Allen with Carl for a second time and Andy, is that Boris was in the band from 1985 to 1992, the exact time that Dave Allen was engineering these records, and the gear, like Dave talked about, I don't know if my earrings are like making this shitty noise, but Dave talked about how each album sounds different, not only because the people are different, the times are different, the studio space is different. Like he had people get into like a good their cars and record for Wish to make it like fun, and
Mhm.
the gear of the time is different. Now everything's like zeros and ones and everything's Schecter and everything's blah blah. And that's another subject I wanted to get to is Schecter, but I invite everybody at home to think about the fact that maybe part of the reason why you're so fucking like you won't let go of Boris Williams, who quit the Cure, he quit, is because he played during this
Yeah.
very precise time with a very precise producer with analog gear, you know, and now here comes Jason. He's got to up that ante. You know, he's got to play it his way and better or not. You know,
Yeah.
and so I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm very
I
defensive of
I'll
Jason.
I'll quickly touch on the Jason Boris and Jason like comparison. I think nostalgia is a very powerful thing, right? Like, and I mean, if you think about what Boris has put up legacy wise, right? He was the drummer in Orange. He's on that famous Cure. It's not even a bootleg. It's what on Tret or on Treat.
Play out and
Um,
and treat.
oh,
Yeah,
and
that's really
Treat.
great.
and
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
amazing does that sound? How highly regarded that recording is in general, right? And then he's on Show, and then he's on Paris, right? The Paris, compilation, the live compilation, and then you have Jason stepping in, right? And there's all of that, all of those big major milestones that we're comparing Jason against, and he really, what is, the body of work Jason has to show for while he's learning all the songs in a new band and finding his own way, right?
Mm-hmm.
He finally gets his opportunity to put up Trilogy, which I thought sounded amazing, right? I think he did
Mm-hmm.
all those songs justice. And then we get into Sydney, we get into the 40th anniversary shows, and then fast forward to what the Cure sounds like today, which is amazing live. I think that it's kind of an unfair comparison, and I think nostalgia is playing tricks on people a little bit. And I think we're all kind of wired to say, "Hey, back then, it was better for X, Y, and Z," and it's very easy to do that. But I think Jason is equally talented. Obviously, sounds different because he's a different human being and has different tendencies. But like that's where I'm at with the whole Jason Boris thing. I think they each have their own place, and it's like it's one of those things where it's like Jason's the drummer now, and I'm pretty much all in on Jason. And what I've noticed from this tour, the one thing I noticed from this tour is a lot of new fans were showing up that are
Mm-hmm.
not old Cure fans that know everything about the Cure, right? And so I audibly would hear people leaving and saying, "That drummer is amazing. Like, oh my God, their drummer is so good." And it's their first
Yeah.
impression, right? And I think
Right.
their first impression says a lot about Jason, more than what we all think about Jason as like 20, 30-year-old Cure fans, right? So like that's my perspective on it. Just wanted to share that.
I think that's really insightful. The part,
I,
the nostalgia, and when you got into the Cure and who was drumming, and Boris was so different from Lowell.
I think the other thing, and it's kind of like, that head on the door to Wish era, at least critically wise, most people say like this is the best the Cure did, um, for the most part. And a lot of people, of course, you're attached to In Between Days, just like Heaven, Pictures of You, who played drums on High and whatever. So yeah, you would definitely have that nostalgia. I don't think that I think I don't think it has anything to do with the drummers, honestly. And it's the same with the guitarists and the keyboard players. I think there's one person who's in charge of that band, very much, and very much has been for a very long time. And that's not to say, like, you know, if Simon leaves, that band's going to sound completely different, and each member offers something, you know, that makes this signature sound of whatever.
Yeah, but
I
Ian,
think
you
that
can't. Hold on. Arete. Ian, you wanted to be Simon Gallup. I mean, The Cure is not The Cure without Simon.
oh
Gallup.
yeah, I know, but if you listen to what I'm going to say,
All right. Go ahead. I'm just
All
getting.
right, so
I'm getting a little bristled because of.
and one person has to be in charge, because honestly, let's think about Oasis and the Jesus and Mary chain. That's what happens when you have two people in charge. The Smiths, right? So you got to have one guy, right? The Beatles had Paul. John didn't really like that, but Paul was kind of running the show most of the time because someone has to keep their head also. And so Robert has been in control for a long time. And I think that at times he has a hard time giving up control. And I think that his control over what the drummers and the guitarists play live has eased since 1987. And slowly that's kind of eased. And I hear that in Pearl's guitar playing for sure. But if you listen to the way Boris plays a lot of stuff on drums at the Wish tour, he's a little freer. You know, that In Your House has a shuffle to it that the original does not have. I don't think that, I don't feel like it would have been played that way 4 years earlier, because I think that that's Robert, you know, releasing a little bit, or his vision of what he wants it to sound like is obviously always changing. And so if people don't like that Jason does more drum fills on a record, it's, you know, it's that he's able to show his own individual style, but it's also like, it's what Robert wants, right? If Robert really hated what was coming out, it wouldn't come out. He would say no. If he really disliked it, he would say, well, this member has to go, or this record can't go, or this has to be remixed, or whatever. I think it's ridiculous. I think Jason's a really amazing drummer. I think especially if you listen to the bootlegs, like trying to learn 150 songs in a year, and a group of fans that are like,
Yeah,
I mean, we're completely unforgiving.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, oh my God, he messed up the words "the same deep water as you" again. Like, it's the end of the world. It might have been the greatest moment of your life, but you know, we can't focus on, oh no, he messed up the words again.
I gotta interrupt again and say, so there's talk in the chat about click track, and I want to dispel this mystery, and we still got to get to Ruben. So this is the story, Ruben. The Cure. The only way we're gonna know why the Cure started using a click track is if we ask Robert Smith, and he's not here. Let me see if I can call him. But I asked Simon Gallup.
Cool phone.
I know. Hey, this is the only one that Robert Smith uses. It's the only one that he'll use. But when he calls me, that's the only one. No, I asked Simon Gallup about the click track, and I said, "Can you please help me, because everyone is like hanging this thing on Jason as if Jason needs a click track to play drums, and that is not true.
No.
That is not why the click track exists." And Simon Gallup said to me, "It's an unfortunate necessary evil. If you want to have, you know, lights in the background and visuals in the background, and we all have to deal with it, and poor Jason has to put up with it." The end. Ruben, take it away.
No, I also noticed too that Robert will change the beats per minute over the tours, and he will slow songs down, maybe because he thinks they sound better, or maybe he thinks that just the tempo is going to work for that tour. So that's another reason why you need a click track, right? Is if you're a drummer, and the song is ingrained into you by a certain tempo, right? And Robert's telling you to adjust and play it slower, play it faster.
It's
You're
hard to do.
gonna want to lean on a click track. Trust me, you don't want to screw up in front of 40,000 fans, right? Especially these fans who are maybe half of us are looking for you to screw up anyway. Um, but yeah, that's what I'll say about that is these are necessary evils mainly for production, and to stay on time. If you've noticed, The Cure play the whole U.S. tour, they never went over curfew.
Right.
And do you know why? Because they are on time, and
Right.
a click track is part of that.
And it
Right.
costs
I
them a
think
lot of money if they go over.
Yeah.
I would guess, listening to all the shows, I feel the number one culprit of why there's a click track is From the Edge of the Deep Green Sea.
Yeah.
The speed of that song varies greatly
Mhm.
between shows, regardless of who's the drummer. And if it's a little too slow, it really starts to drag.
Mm.
There's other songs that they can play it a little too slow or a little too fast, and it's not going to make a huge difference. But that was one that I found that if they start playing it a little too slow at the beginning, about like 5 minutes into the song, it just, you can even hear it in the way he's singing. Like they can feel that this is just too long. Why is it like this? And so I always thought when they started using the click track, I was like, it's Deep Green Sea is definitely one of those songs where
You're gonna have to call
if you're
Robert
playing
and
it a
ask
little
him.
too slow, I don't know.
You're gonna
I
call
agree. I agree with that.
Ian. Call Robert. Call Robert. Ruben, what was the thing that you were
I'm
listening
going to
to? Was
write him
that,
a letter.
what was the thing that you and I were talking about? Something that you heard. You went back and listened to. Was it Wrong Number? Was it? It was a Reeves. It was a 1998 to now.
Yeah. So here, let me show you. This is a VHS for those who don't know. Let me try to get that. The title of this bootleg is A Multi-Orgasmic Evening with The Cure.
Wow.
Wow.
And it's December 8th, 1997 at it says San Jose Arena, but that's a lie. It was at San Jose State Event Center.
Oh,
Um,
we were at that show, Brew.
you were at that show?
Yeah, like Shake Dog. They played Untitled, Shake Dog Shake,
Yeah. Yeah. They played
Holy
Torture.
Hour.
Oh, is this for the
Torture.
radio station tour?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Reeves
what's
was there.
Yeah, I think it was my first
Reeves.
Torture.
So this is, I don't know if this was Reeves' like first stage debut with The Cure, but it blew my mind that he showed up on stage and he played Wrong Number with them, and I think he also stayed for another song too.
I think he also played on Cut.
Yeah, I think he also played on Cut as well.
He played in Philly too at the Tower Theater, and somewhere in my collection over here, I have a pen pal letter where I wrote what things that Reeves played. I'll have to see if I can dig that up.
Yeah, I think on that Christmas '97 tour, I think he played with them. I want to say there were 4 or 5 shows that he came out.
That's cool. That's so awesome.
So Ruben, so you watched that, and then what did you do?
Well, I watched that show. I noticed that a lot of the songs that they play in that show, the BPM is a lot faster. It's a lot more up tempo. Like, I was really impressed with that. I was like, damn, they ran through Torture real quick. And it was like, there was this crazy energy to it. Simon's bass is bouncing around himself as he's just bouncing all over the stage. And man, I love the Swing Tour, like 97,
98.
those shows, the energy was insane. Even though like the crowds didn't really show up, I felt like those were the tours and the shows to see because they were long, they were breaking out everything. etc. I think that the few things that I've noticed for the live sound is Simon's bass was very overdriven back then and not so much more now. Like you can clearly hear what he's playing. So that was like one takeaway. The other takeaway that I've noticed is like the bass six sound has gotten a lot more drier as the years have gone on. Like it sounds more punchier, less reverb. And I'm not sure why. I don't know if it has something to do with them when they switched over to Schecter and they're playing that Schecter bass six now or what.
I think that, yeah, because Perry still used the Fender.
Yeah, Perry. Yeah, Perry had a lot of like interesting instruments on stage. He would always play like he played this like aria type of guitar, which is like I think it's manufactured in Italy, something like that. He always had a bunch of weird guitars on him. He had an ES 335 as well. It's a Gibson guitar that he used to play a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just noticed one that the band they do evolve over time, right? Like especially that basic sound. And now Reeves has the bass six. He's borrowing it, or maybe Robert gave it to him to
He
play a
gave
lot
it to
of
him.
those. Yeah, he's playing a lot of those lead lines, which is cool, but it just doesn't quite sound the same, right? It doesn't sound as reverby, as full. It sounds a little bit thinner, a little bit punchier, a little bit more, I don't know, like hollow in some shape or form. And I don't think it sounds bad. I think it just sounds different, right? And it's just interesting to go back to 97 and hear what they sounded like and just see the energy of the band in general. And then obviously fast forward to now, I would argue that they sound a lot more professional, like a lot tighter nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
And but you know, like all those eras they're just fun to go back and see the evolution. I think part of the sound evolution does have to do with the Schecter era of you know Robert being signed like a signed artist on Schecter right now. I felt like when those guitars went away, a big part of the Cure sound kind of went away too, like the acoustic 12 string, right? Like the 12 string that we're all used to hearing on In Between Days, Friday I'm in Love, Just Like Heaven. I don't know if anybody notices, but nowadays when they play those songs, you can't really hear the acoustic very well in the mix. I know they played Trust a few times, and there's like a solo spotlight where Robert, the keyboards kind of swell out, and Robert is playing those diminished chords on the upper register of the strings, and they don't really ring out like they used to, like you know, because it doesn't have that 12 string effect where there's like an octave above, like kind of shimmering out, and so like
Ruben, I'm gonna interrupt again because this is
yeah.
really fascinating what you're saying. So I want to slow it down a little bit for the people that are talking about like what there's a lot of music people on right now, but for the ones
Mhm.
that aren't that proficient in that language, because I think this is a really important point. So when you talk about a 12 string guitar, you talk about Robert's 12 string guitar, we're talking about what are the songs again, and what is it about a 12 string? Is it because it's a hollow body? And what's a hollow body?
Well, the 12 string guitar is just the one that Robert plays is an acoustic. He had a couple. One of them was a Guild 12 string. One of them was an Ovation 12 string. They both sound amazing.
But wait,
Uh,
if it's acoustic, everything's plugged in. So what does that mean? Does that
yeah,
mean
so like I'm pretty sure what he had to do was he had to rig it up with electronics so that he can, you know, mic it or have it go out to the speakers. Um,
The Ovations had the electronic pickup
Oh
built.
yeah, they had the
That was
Ovation
a
you
big
can just
thing.
plug directly in as if it was an electric guitar. And it
Yeah.
had like a little onboard Fishman pickup and a
And for
mixer.
those who don't know, the pickup is like when you look at a guitar that's like this. Here's the body and here's the neck. There's a little, oh, there it is. There's the pickup. So
There's
sometimes,
two here.
Yeah, so that picks up the string sound, right? So
Yeah.
guitar, for
Yeah.
those people that aren't musically inclined or don't play, these little details, like I posted something about Robert using the same pickups that he found from like some guy in Japan in 1979 or something. Like guitar nerds and music nerds will get so honed in on like the humbucker pickup or the this pickup or the that pickup. Anyway, continue. So he used to use these Ovation 12-string guitars, this full sound.
Yeah, it used to. Yeah, and that's pretty much why he used a 12 string, is because you have to cut through the mix of bass, keyboards, all the other things that are on stage, and the 12 string would do that. It would make the song sound so much more fuller. And
Oh,
if you
gotta interrupt again. Ian, can you turn off the Cure?
Oh, I
Or
just paused. Yeah,
oh,
I just did.
okay,
It started playing
auto
again.
playing. Okay,
and it
continue.
it, it
Yeah.
kind of
That's
goes
how you
back
do it, right?
it kind of goes back to the chorus effect being a staple of the Cure. Like
Mm,
a 12 string guitar is a natural chorus effect, pretty much,
mm,
right?
Right.
So Robert has an acoustic, and yes, he could run it through a chorus pedal, and he might have, right? He probably did at one point. Um, but when he's on stage, he's playing that guitar for the sake of the song, right? So it can sound true to the recording, right? Because on Just Like Heaven, they definitely recorded Just Like Heaven with a 12 string. Um, so yeah, it's so when that went away in present day Cure live shows, the songs just don't sound as, I guess, rich as they
mm-hmm,
used to, right? They
mm-hmm.
don't sound very full when it comes to focusing on Robert's guitar work on that acoustic, right?
Mhm.
You just kind of you're losing six strings essentially, right? That used to
Yeah.
be there. And it could be for a number of reasons. It could be because Schecter doesn't make great 12 strings and Robert doesn't want to fuss with it on stage. 12 strings are actually really hard to play. They're not easy to play. You need like really good hand strength. So it could be
Yeah.
that Robert chooses to not work as hard on stage because the tour is long and you got to have longevity on a 30-day tour, right? So it could be that reason. For that reason, I'm not sure. I'd love to ask Robert why he went away from the 12 string when it was such a big part of the sound.
Well, that was you also. This goes into the whole Schecter debate, and Schecter, we love you. I love you. This is not a criticism. Don't fire me and don't post things on Twitter about what an evil ding ding I am just because I have an opinion on life. I'm just a person with an opinion. Um, but somebody was talking to me and said, "Well, what if they're using Schecter like there's just a deal, so they have to use Schecter, but because you know how Simon just kind of throws his, not every time, but he gives up a lot of his guitars for charity. They all kind of do, and then they get a new guitar.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a quality? I mean, to me, as like a non-guitar person, I hear a decrease in exactly what you're talking about in sound, and I don't think Schecter's a bad guitar manufacturer at all. It's not that. It's something that I don't understand. Are you guys feeling me? Like, I.
Yeah.
Mm.
Their
Well,
amps have changed a lot too.
yeah.
Mm,
I mean,
Yeah.
They have the amps can have a huge
they're
thing.
not playing tube amplifiers anymore.
Yeah, I have the red Simon like Rubens, and I like it quite a bit. I mean, I guess I haven't plugged it into an amp and really cranked it up like you would if I was playing a concert hall, because I sold that amplifier because I don't play concert halls. um, but through the amp I have at home, I think it sounds great, and I haven't had any problems with it so far. I've enjoyed playing it. I found it a little bit easier to play than I used the bass before that. I had the Gibson hollow body, which I actually found to be kind of a pain in the butt because the frets were smaller. And so my muscle memory of I'm going to go to the 10th fret, I'd go to like the 13th fret. So I always had to look at what I was playing, which kind of drove me crazy. But yeah, I like the Schecter quite a bit as a bass by itself.
But
Yeah, I think
I agree with Ruben, and that there's certain songs like when they brought back Last Dance, and they brought back or brought in Just One Kiss. I guess just maybe because I'd never heard of it, I flipped my fucking wig and was just like, holy shit, this sounds so good. And then Last Dance recently in like 2019 especially sounded so, and maybe 2016 too, but it sounded so much like the album to me. And maybe it didn't, maybe it's my muscle memory. So there is something to being able to use Schecter to like precisely go in and like do whatever Robert does and whatever Reeves does and whatever Simon does to make that signature guitar, but you lose something in the physicality of bringing this hollow body in and bringing this Fender bass 6 or whatever in. And so Ruben, like I agree with you, and I'm curious to know your theories on Schecter.
I think the reason why an artist signs with a company like Schecter is there's a couple of reasons. They're on stage because you're in so many different environments, from going to amphitheaters to indoor. You want a consistent instrument that you're not going to have to screw around with before the show and set it up very quickly. And I think Schecter will achieve that because it's a very basic, instrument that they can make very consistently, right? So if you're comparing the Schecter 6-string to a 1963 Fender bass 6,
Yeah.
the old
Not reliable.
don't travel very well and they're finicky based on environment. So maybe the Cure was just sick of it and they're just like, you know what, screw it. Let's just sign with Schecter and have more consistency in our sound. It's better than lugging these, multi-$1,000 instruments around all over the world and having them stored in places where we can't keep an eye on them, et cetera. Right. So like
You can't replace them.
I think the other positive
Especially,
thing
yeah.
about Schecter is that these instruments are now accessible. Like if you want to play Simon's exact bass on stage, you could go out and buy one, and it's relatively affordable because they're manufactured in a way that makes them affordable. So that I think that's a positive. I think where it gets maybe some of the cons are like, the 12, there's no 12 string on stage anymore, so that's a bummer. Or things along those lines where like Robert's no longer playing a Fender Jazzmaster anymore, which I think was a big part of their sound, and maybe some of those songs sound very different on a Schecter, right? Like I'll say that whenever Robert plays his Schecter bass 6, it doesn't sound the same as when he plays it on the Fender, right? It's there's something a little bit different there.
So just real quick, what's a song that like newbies could go back and
So
look at
I think the
live?
perfect example of what I'm talking about is like the show recording, right? Go back and listen to show and listen to pictures of you, right?
Okay.
Listen to pictures of you on show, and then go listen to their latest tour and listen to them play pictures of you. And you'll notice quite a difference in the sound of the bass 6.
I think the interesting thing about the bass 6, sorry, but this is only like a second, but the interesting thing about the bass 6 is that they remade them in Japan at some point in the 80s, and they still kind of make new ones, and they've never achieved that sound of the 1960s one. So if like even their own company can't recreate that sound. Sorry to cut you off.
No, that's true. Although, and the Japanese Fenders are worth more than anything that was made in anywhere else after that. But
and they're very good.
They're very well made. They don't. Yeah. So what I was just going to say is when they played Sydney a couple years ago and did the whole Disintegration album from beginning to end, that's like a more recent version where you can see where Robert he brought his original guitars with him. He didn't play any
Mm,
Schecter during that concert,
mm,
Yeah.
which I
mm.
thought was like so cool. I was geeking out about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Not
And that's
everybody
what
else
they
in the
did at
band did that,
Trilogy
but he
too.
did. Yeah, right. So you can take those, and this is something I was actually going to ask you, Ian. Is there, you know, one song, say, that we could break it down if we were going to talk about this again and say, okay, let's listen to this song when it was played in 1986 versus 1987, versus just one song rather than the
Mm.
whole show, and see how that evolved with each member changing and with the drummers changing and with the instruments changing, and see what we came up with. That's something that I'm like my own personal homework that
I think
doing.
it's interesting because my wife and I talk about this. One of, I think the two that we really notice are M and a Forest.
Well, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you know, because it's pretty much they've been playing it the entirety. For me, with M, I don't think you can beat the Faith Tour. The versions of M are, they're unbelievably amazing. Like his guitar playing, because there's like, I'm the lead instrument, so I have to make it interesting. The guitar solos at the end of the song on that entire tour are so good. The Faith Tour to me is the benchmark of how you can show how much practice and playing out can improve a band, because they were pretty good at the beginning of the Faith Tour, but you can hear each night like they get tighter and tighter, and some of
I'm
those
getting
songs
goosebumps.
are, yeah, it's unbelievable how good some of the songs by the Drowning Man and M and a Forest, the Holy Hour, like even All Cats Are Gray evolved, like they all just grow to, like, once the three of them are together, it's solid, and it sucks that they got in a big fight and you know, had, you know,
And they
all
had
that, because
they didn't have
I
nearly
think
the
it took them a few
technology then
years
either.
to get that back. I think
Yeah.
it was, and the Top Tour is really good, but yeah, there's this,
Well, there
the
was
Faith
something
Tour
that you said to
is
me, Ian, when you were talking about your bootleg journey, and then I want to like ask Kate about this geek out thing for a second. But you had said when you started, we were just talking, you know, privately about how from 17 Seconds to Faith, it was really interesting because there were four people in the band, and then, you know, Hartley, right? Am I saying the right person? Hartley drops out, and then it's three.
yeah. So he drops out like halfway
So they have to get
through the
better,
tour.
and they're playing so many nights, and they're young, and they're just, you know, like Simon did an interview recently, which I'm sure you all heard it. It was from somebody from the this Radiant Hour. I forget her name. I can put it in the links, but it was a really interesting.
Oh, were they talking about the Australian tour? Maybe.
Yeah, but Simon was talking about how at that time they just lived, breathed, existed for the Cure. Like everything, every little second of their life was the Cure, which is like they were what, 20, 21, whatever. But I think that's really,
Yeah.
I think that's really fascinating. Also because I love the Cure in every form that they are, but I really think the signature sound again of the Cure is Robert Smith, Simon Gallup, and a drummer. And then from there it expands
Yeah.
and contracts. But I mean Lowell, and I love Lowell. I don't like it when people are mean to Lowell either, even though I know he was a pain in the ass to work with, apparently, whatever, you know, during his, you know, hard times. We all have hard times, and I hope that if I'm a pain in the ass to work with, somebody doesn't be mean to me 20 years later. But anyway, so he did his best, but he wasn't a great drummer. But those
He
three
was
albums,
tight, though. He was
Faith,
tight.
I mean, 17 Seconds, Faith, and Pornography.
Yeah.
Hello.
Other Voices
And,
is amazing. Amazing drum pattern on Other Voices.
yeah. I really, I think the he would not work now, and Jason wouldn't work then. Boris wouldn't work then.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of the bit of the magic of that 79 to 82 is that they're all learning what they're doing. I mean, Robert was a really good guitarist at the point I started listening, at the Marquee March of '79 when I started listening. But you could just hear it grow and get tighter. And Lowell was really very tight, and he could play really fast, which
you sometimes do when you're nervous too.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah.
When you
Kate, did you ever play drums?
No. But the drummer that was in the band that I played with was Boris. I mean, Jason had just joined when that was between 92 and 96. And it was amazing hearing him play. He could play just one of the Cure songs, High, for instance. Boris had a very melodic way of playing, I think, in that he used the toms, like the toms are the big round ones that you see toward the top, right? Which I love that they're clear now so you can see through them. I think that's brilliant on stage. But and there's like, he had like a little tiny cymbal over here, and then he had the China cymbal, which sounds like a trash can. I forget who was trying to explain this to me, that it's in Open. You hear it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
China's it's not a common cymbal. He was a cymbal geek, and so the guy in our band was also a cymbal geek, and he came to practice, and he would like have his like velvet thing that he would wipe them all down with. But no, I didn't play them, but I have a high appreciation for drummers, and one drummer that I'm really excited when the Twilight Sad, now that they have Grant.
Yeah.
Because when I saw Frightened Rabbit play, I mean, I'll get teared up, because when Frightened Rabbit played, they were a small band and could do so much with just a small 3/4 piece. A really good drummer can make a band sound so much bigger than they are. Whereas no other instrument can quite do that the same way. And I feel like Jason has just got this certain, and my husband has pointed this out, like he brings a sort of epicness to the songs that you kind of hear little bits of in older songs here and there, but like he really capitalizes on those epic moments.
Burn.
Yeah. I mean, Burn is just another creature. If you go listen to watch The Crow, and you're like, oh, that's Burn.
Yeah.
I used to play drums. Drums, but not traditional drums. I was in this weird art rock tribal band, and we played standing up drums, and I definitely played fast, and I definitely always wanted to play more drums, and so I always hone in on the drummer. And Boris never had traditional lessons. So
is that her demo right there? Oh!
Okay. All right.
I want to hear them.
No, you don't.
Oh,
no, you
yeah.
don't. It's
Yeah.
No.
We'll put the link after.
Oh, I have like
Don't do it.
I have like a whole drawer filled with like tapes of my bands and friends' bands and stuff from like the 80s.
That's
and
awesome.
90s. No, I can't do that to people because other people have stuff like that of me that has, and I don't want it to, so I'm not going to start some personal war with any of my friends.
Yeah, but so Boris, I know why people, like Boris is an incredible drummer, and Jason will be one of the first people to tell you that. Like he had to study what Boris did, you know what I mean? And he admires drummers, and I'm sure that Boris has some admiration for Jason because they're all musicians who are not assholes, and they appreciate the differences in each other. So Boris never trained properly, but he was hugely into jazz. And then when he started, there's another great interview out there. I'll try to include all these references that I'm having, but some guy did a radio interview with him after Rock Hall, and it's fascinating because you never hear what Boris has to say, right? But he said, he's like, I was never trained. I just started to do it. The punk rock days. I don't remember what bands he was in he was in Berlin because that's where Roger and him met in Berlin, and that's how Roger got into the Cure, was because of Boris. And
I
then
thought it was Thompson twins.
Thompson twins.
Oh, it may have been Thompson twins, but
Yeah.
they also both played in Berlin for a minute, I think. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, somebody can fact check me. But they were buddies, you know. I think Roger talked about it in an interview about Berlin, because he was some interview with Roger where he got the job and he didn't he was talking about practice and how important it is, and he didn't practice, and he was like, "Oh my God, I just fucked up so badly." But anyway, so Boris is a you know, punk and also jazz, still to this day I think is jazz influenced. I'm not entirely sure. And then Jason, you know, went to school, like drum school, I think. Like he's more of like a traditional, and that's why on some levels you do hear more of like a soft flow.
Cuban drumming. I remember that being a thing when he joined Wild Mood Swings. It was in like one of those, it might have been in Cure News, Chris can say, where I don't know, something he answered was about Cuban drums. And then when I briefly met him later that year in '96, and I said, "So you're really into Brazilian drums?" He's like, "No, Cuban." I was like, see, I wouldn't know the difference, but now, you know, different way of playing than jazz, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, Jason plays in a tiny jazz band now, but just to say it's just apples and oranges, and it's just a different thing. But so we're approaching 2 hours of talking now. Yeah.
Wow.
See, we need to do another. This is a good topic.
I know, this is a big topic. We may need to do a part.
Yeah, I didn't even. I was actually thinking like half an hour ago you mentioned Last Dance, and Ruben had said how it sounds really great now. One of the shows I just listened to, it's one of like the last 10 from 2016. They play Last Dance, and Reeves' guitar, it's amazing. It's so ethereal sounding. It's something in the way he plays it that's slightly different than the way Perry and Pearl played it. It's almost like Robin Guthrie of the Cocteau Twins has like come in and like tweaked his guitar a little bit. Like I was like, this is one of the best versions of this song I've ever heard. Like it really blew me away how good it was.
Cool.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to Andy Anderson. Thierry just slapped me and said, "Don't forget Andy Anderson." And that's true.
Yeah. Power.
Andy,
Power.
I wish I had seen them live with Andy, because on tape it sounds like he must have been incredibly loud. I don't know if I would want to be the singer standing in front of him, because I feel like at this point Robert would be completely deaf if he was sitting behind Andy Anderson the whole time, or at least that's the way it sounds in the bootlegs. It just sounds like he must have been very heavy-handed. But I love the bootlegs with Andy. I think he's great, because I said he messed up Siamese Twins, and that's one of the few times I really heard Andy mess up. Actually,
I think he's in this one.
He is, that's his last show.
Oh yeah,
actually.
My dog chewed the corner when she was a puppy. So
shake dog.
Man, that's like a $300 to $500 mistake right
there.
So I think we have to wrap this up, just because I always said I didn't want to go over 2 hours, but I feel like we've just barely got started.
Yeah.
So would you guys be into doing this again?
Yeah.
Guys and gals.
Yeah.
And then for everybody who's watching, send in your reports, and we could actually I can add 5 people with my thing, but so if anybody wants to be a part of these like nerd out discussions, we can do it. I'd like to always
Carl Palmer. I would like to hear his point of view on some of these things.
Yeah, he's in there, and Thierry, of course, and there's something that somebody just said. God damn it! Somebody keeps talking about the 1981 bootlegs being interesting because the crowd was so angry. I think that's fascinating. So I think we have some homework to do.
Especially in Germany.
We have some homework to do, because we can't talk for more than 2 hours. It just gets self-righteous. So we need to think about what we missed, I definitely want to get to Perry on the new.
Yeah.
I want to get to the new stuff. I
Yeah.
wanted to get. We didn't get to I Can Never Say Goodbye, and the bass and the drums and that.
All the new stuff with Reeves, just hearing Reeves as a new voice.
Yeah, I
in the
mean
tour.
maybe next time we'll start with the new. Why don't we do that? We'll start with the new, but we'll always anchor in Ian's bootleg journey so that we can have like a, that you're like the encyclopedia. You're the Simon Price, what's that Curepedia that's coming out? Why didn't they interview you, Ian, for that?
Oh.
They don't even know you exist.
Maybe not.
Yeah, I think that the main problem with interviewing me for these things is that I can't even think of the third line of The Drowning Man. So what I can remember is really strange. Like I can't remember the words to songs.
But that's because that's why
I don't know when Robert screws up sometimes.
But that's why
I'm like,
to do this.
That's not right. Oh, I don't know.
Because everybody focuses on the lyrics, which is cool. Like I said, I mean, I don't think there's a Cure fan out there that has not held on to those lyrics as like, you just explained something about me. Like, how did you open my heart? How did you do that? Like, how did you explain me?
How can you forget that verse?
But
yeah, it's even better when you mishear a song and realize that he said cut instead of caught. And a night like this really changes your perspective after like 20 years of thinking the song was different.
You thought he said what? Cupped?
I thought he said caught. Like you're the best thing I caught.
Yeah.
Not cut. Like, so I'm thinking he's sad because this girl like broke his heart. But now that he cut her, he broke her heart. He's the mean guy now. He totally, at least for me. And maybe I'm or maybe that has nothing to do with it, and I don't actually understand what the song's about.
Yeah, maybe it's a British cut means
fun of them, and they
maybe cut means banged.
The most gorgeous, stupid thing I ever banged in the world.
Gorgeously stupid thing I ever banged in the world.
She was a bimbo.
That's Noel Gallagher singing The Cure. It's a Britpop version.
Oh my God.
All right, well, we're going to do this again. We barely scratched the surface. Thank you to every single person that is online with us.
Thank you for having us.
And yeah, Thierry, I mean, there's just so many people, and I love this stuff. So let's mark our calendars, write down your thoughts, because or else you're going to forget and life's going to take over and you're going to be like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I spent all week telling myself to write notes so I could remember these key points that I thought we would talk about. But, life. And then I bought a car like 2 hours before we did this, which is like incredibly stressful. So
wow.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's a little
Daddy Warbucks over
next
there.
time hopefully I'll make notes.
I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah, all right. We leased it, so
I know, I'm joking. He's not Daddy Warbucks at all.
And it's actually my wife's car because I don't drive, so it's
Anywho.
All right, we'll do it again. We'll maybe have a fifth guest. We'll get a +1. How about that?
Yeah.
Have a great Saturday.
All right.
And we'll do